Alright guys, so in this video we are going to be mounting the air to water intercooler, and I also completely mocked up all the intercooler piping out of 3D printed parts. Bunch of pie cuts, did the routing, hot glue gunned it all together, so that way it gives me a good template to make it out of aluminum. Now if you remember in a previous video, Ichiban Moto gave me the air to water intercooler, the heat exchanger, some couplers, and some aluminum piping. So I'm trying to make this all work, and I've also ordered some extra parts just so I can completely get this project going. Okay, so I pulled out the inner fender for the millionth time already here. It was easier to pull this out and mock it up here. Okay, so what I did is I mounted the intercooler. This is the passenger side inner fender, and one thing to note is the fender comes right here. So I have this thing all the way back as far as possible. The core support is here. The stock battery lived over here. And then the fender, you'll see when it's installed, comes up over here and it just kind of hugs the top. Okay, so what I did is I spent like half a day making this bracket here, and it's going to bolt from underneath. And I welded some nuts on here. And then same thing here. So I made this little bracket, welded some nuts, painted it, and then it's spaced off of the inner fender, and I have some room underneath to run electrical or whatever. And then in here, these are electrical grommets for the turn signal and front side marker, I believe. So anyway, stuff has to pass through there, and I wanted this open. Okay, I put a little elbow on the fitting there. Here's a 3/4 hose just for mock-up. It's going to run like this, and then to the front heat exchanger. And then this thing's pretty solid. You know, the whole thing's freaking moving. Remember, we're going to have silicone hoses and aluminum pipe running to the turbo and to the throttle body, so that will give this all a little bit of support. So I'm going to throw this back in the car, and then you can see how it looks, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how I mocked it up. I pulled the fender out and then had some tape lines on here of where it needed to be. Put this up on some blocks of wood and cardboard, and then I just started fabbing up these brackets. So here's kind of how I made the bracket. You know, I just have some graphing paper, and then I bent it up, and then what I did is I took a pencil and I scribbled on the hole to see where it was, and then just cut it out and bent this in the vise, drilled the hole, and that's what you get. Okay, so the inner fender and intercooler is back in place, and you can see I have room under the fender. I also have room between the intercooler and the inner fender, and it just pretty much fits right in there. Okay, this is where the stock battery used to go, so we'll relocate that guy to the trunk, but really I couldn't find another spot for it, and it makes sense here. It's close to the turbo, and it's gonna have a short run to the throttle body, so I think this is the best spot for it, to be honest. Okay, so here are the 3D printed parts. This is a straight with an 8-degree cut, so I can transition to a pie cut. And then this is some support material that I have to break off. So, you know, you can't print undercuts. So it comes with this support material that you can just snap right off. Okay, so that's one pie cut right there. I got another one right here. Okay, so how I constructed these pie cuts is I wanted a tighter bend radius. I'll show you the pipes that I have, and generally those are like 5-inch centerline bend radius. Okay, that's pretty much the tightest you can get mandrel bent before the material starts deforming. So to make pie cuts is you start with straight tubing and you angle cut both sides. Okay, now when I constructed my lines, I did this in CAD software. I started at 3 inches from the center line radius, center line of the tubing to here, right? So I had a point down here, which is 3 inches from here to the center, and that's where you begin your angled lines, okay? And I decided to do 8 degrees per side, which is an 18-degree overall slice of pie. And so that's this right here. Now, if you need a tighter radius, this 3 inches, obviously you would shrink that down, and what happens is this would get skinnier, okay? And that way the transition would be tighter, okay? And ultimately, if this went down to 0, then you can have a 1.5 inch bend radius. You know what I'm saying? So as you increase this distance, your radius gets larger, okay? So anyway, 3 inch bend radius, and then you can just use some hot glue and glue them together. Now the cool thing about pie cuts is you can have an infinite kind of fitment, because you can rotate these and clock them any which way to get whatever bend you're trying to get. Okay, so it's very it's fine-tuning everything. Okay, so let me quickly glue these together. Bam, that's what you get. So that's pretty cool. I got a bunch of strings here from the hot glue, and you just make marks here with a Sharpie to line it all up. And here's the other one. I printed this. I printed the pie cuts and the transitions at 090 thick, just to save material or to make them beefier. But these straight sections here, I just did 030, so it'd print quicker. I mean, just to get my template here. But yeah, and then I just taped it. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so here's the aluminum pipe that I got from Ichiban Moto. The couplers that he gave me are not shown. They are blue and 3-ply. I'm going with black and 4-ply, okay? So I bought a bunch of couplers from Monkey Fab Garage. I'll put a link in the video description. And I'm going to try to make something work here. Okay, so, and then also you can trim them. Like, for instance, the 45 degree was way too long, so I trimmed it up with an X-Acto knife or a utility knife. But anyway, these bends here are 5.5, roughly, to the center line, okay? So let me show you the pie cut version. You can see that it's a much tighter radius, okay? And I can jog this pipe any which way I want. Now, here are the 3D printed sections. My goal is to cut these up to hopefully get this shape, okay? Because this is an insane amount of welding. It is 9 inches for each joint. 9 inches, if I were to stretch this out into a linear weld, it'd be 9 inches. And what complicates things is I'm a beginner for TIG, and this is round, right? So it's gonna be difficult for me, at least, to weld, okay? So this is awesome as a template. I can visualize what I need, but ultimately I'm gonna try to use these bends first and see if I can get what I want. These tubes also have beaded ends, so I'm gonna definitely use them, and if I have to cut it here and weld whatever, I will. I will use the beaded end because then it won't blow off the couplers. Okay, something else I bought are these weld-on bead ends from Monkey Fab. So basically, if you are left with a straight pipe like this, if you put a coupler on here, you run the risk of just it blowing off under boost. So instead of, you could obviously buy a bead roller, but they're expensive, right? Monkey Fab has these little rings here, these ends, and basically, so basically these go on here, you weld it on, and it's a nice beaded end. It acts like a beaded end, and if you don't have a bead roller. Okay, so I bought a couple of those just in case I need it. So that's the tubing that I got from Ichiban Moto. I also bought 4 feet worth of straight just in case I need it. And this will also give me an opportunity, if there's any scrap after all my cuts, just to practice welding. Okay, so I can make a bunch of pie cuts out of this, or practice welding. But I think I can get the job done with what you see here. Okay, so let's go take these parts here and see how they fit on the car. Okay, real quick, I mentioned that I'm going to relocate the battery to the trunk. I have no room up front. Well, I bought this battery box, and I'm starting to plan on how to put this guy in the trunk. Okay, and then these are my old battery cables. I could probably salvage the ground, but I'm going to be running nice thick cables like I did before. These are 1/0 gauge, I guess 0 gauge. But anyway, yeah, I plan on running the positive cable inside the car fused. Okay, so that's the plan. But anyway, that's that. Okay, quick update over here. You saw the video on my new Prime Weld 225X. That thing's awesome. I've been practicing. Hopefully I can gain the confidence to weld this intercooler piping at some point. I have a huge piece of aluminum here that's 1/8 inch thick, so I'm going to rip this down with my metal blade on my circular saw, and I'm going to make a bunch of coupons for more practicing. And also at some point I'm going to be building a tank for the water for this air to water intercooler system. So I'm going to be building a little holding tank to put up front. I bought a metal chop saw for 25 bucks on Craigslist, and right now this has an abrasive wheel for cutting steel. I plan on, actually it should be showing up today, I'm getting a metal aluminum cutting blade that I'll be putting in here, and that way I can slice up all my aluminum tubing. Okay, so that's a little update over here. Okay, so the compressor outlet, the turbo outlet, is right here, and it's 2.5 inch, and we need to transition to 3 inch. So what I have here is a 2.5 to 3 inch elbow. Okay, and then here is my little piece that goes into the intercooler. Here's a 45 degree that I kind of chopped up. It was way too long, so I kind of cut it up. So that's going to go over here. And this 3D print is very delicate, at least the straight section. The purpose of this was just to kind of get it mocked up. Okay, so that goes on there. That fits real nice. Okay, so that one fits on there real nice. Over here, we're just going to go straight. Alright, so that fits in there. Okay, then we come over here. Again, this is a 4 to 3 inch elbow transition, so this throttle body is actually like a 3.9. It's a really goofy size, but a 4 inch works on here. You just kind of crank it down. Okay, so that's that right there. So one thing I may do differently here is I may slice a 1/2 inch or so off of here and make my transition faster to gain a little more clearance between the radiator hose. I got about a 1/4 inch here, so that's the only change I really want to make. So that's going to work. Okay, so here it is installed. You can see it comes out of the turbo. It pretty much goes straight, and then a couple pie cuts, trimmed 45 into the intercooler, and it comes out. And I want to jog under the turbo inlet. I'm not going to have an air filter on here. I'm just going to get a turbo guard, which is just a screen. So I'll run that on there. Jogs down underneath the radiator hose, and then back up and into this silicone elbow. Okay, so that's pretty simple. And there is enough clearance between the fan. I can stick my whole hand in here, and also to the belt tensioner. Can get my hand under here. I could pretty much get my fingers all the way around everywhere. So that's that's the clearance that I'm left with, right? Okay, and as far as the blow-off valve, I'm either going to put it, I can put it down here, something like that, or I can stick it, maybe right here, whatever. I mean, it'll probably live in this location. I don't think I have enough room here to clear the hood, so it's going to be somewhere over here. Now, a lot of people don't even run a blow-off valve, and some say, hey, put it on the turbo side of the intercooler. Some say on the throttle body side. I mean, given that how short this is once this thing opens up, I imagine it's going to relieve this all very quickly. So I really am not going to put too much thought into before or after. I'm just going to try to see what makes sense here at a later time. So it'll either go here or here, I'm thinking. Alright guys, well that's it for this video. I'm going to start chopping up some aluminum here very shortly. We'll get the aluminum at least tacked up. That's probably what I'm going to do at this point, and I'm going to wait to fully weld it until I get better. Okay, so I mean, at least I want to cut this, get it tacked up, and so forth. So stay tuned for that video.